If I had a boat, I'd go out on the ocean. And if I had a pony, I'd ride him on my boat. And we could all together go out on the ocean, me upon my pony on my boat. And if I were like lightning, I wouldn't need no sneakers. I'd come and go wherever I would please, and I'd scare him by the shade tree, and I'd scare him by the light pole, but I would not scare my pony on my boat out on the sea. There's not much I can say about Kerry James Evans that hasn't already been represented through the words of Lyle Lovett, or the actions of Lee Majors in the 1980s hit show The Fall Guy. But Evans drives his stuntman Bronco right into every body of water. Country towns seep and silt through the door cracks, cafes of coral dance in dream states. Characters riff the real and the spectacular. There are stories swimming themselves into the tailpipe, an engine revved to reconciliation. And if there is pain, it will begin to drain once the truck hits the shallows again, rolling slow onto beaches and tracks of his own new and unique dogma. Kerry James Evans writes poems and publishes poems, and his first collection, Bangalore, comes out this fall in Copper Canyon Press, so glad. He is also a kayaker, a fisherman, a disc golfer, a sometimes juicer, and a vegetarian for 3 more days?
Yes.
He's a man of many hats, and most of them camouflage. Most importantly, though, you are my brother, who I'm honored to know, to read, and to swim with in your Bronco. I love you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Kerry James.
I sold my Bronco. Thanks for coming out, y'all. Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. This poem is called Hanging Threads. Don't look at me like a boy. Don't look at the overalls buckled over my nipples. With me hanging threads by clothespins in a backyard, lost a dog shitting on the dill holes. Look at my hands. Look at the dangerous fold over the line. The briefs of my family and offering to gods who never set foot in this yard. The chain link fence, rusting on the pine. My mother salting pork chops in the house, where a grease fire and an overdose will knead her brain and roll it like corrugated tin. Here, the trenches I dug for a sewage line run down a kudzu-covered hillside where we dumped 2 Fords in a washing machine, a football I couldn't catch. Look at my hands, unpinned board, stiff threads from the line, my long glance at my brother and sister growing young, climbing the half-filled propane tank. Look at my hands. Look at the fork that fed my mother. The laundry basket, stiff, folded clothes stacked and spilling over the sides. Grass clippings collect under my heels, and the pine needles have fallen every one. Look how cold I have become. I was a boy. This next poem I wrote because it's called Blackbird. And there aren't enough poems about blackbirds. There are 13 ways to look at a blackbird. But my backyard is not a blackbird, and I'm not Wallace Stevens. and the remnants of an entertainment center, the cherry wood stain fading into sod. I look down at this plot of land like I look at cornfields from a plane, the reordering of things, cities and patches of clover, my folding chair, the arch swaying in St. Louis, the smoker, a memory of my ancestors pulling pork shoulder in Carolina, my ancestors hooking ham in the meat house. Look how the memory changes course. The bluebird fusses with a field mouse. They are government maintained by falcons searing the air with mating calls. Another passing plane I notice from the passenger window. Fire ants drive to work below me, groceries on their backs, bypassing juniper berries and twigs, a dump site for a squirrel's muscadine. I am in 13 places at once, looking off a concrete slab, my cooler half filled with beer and watered down ice, the bottle of Pinot Grigio that turned my wife into a groggy mess. She threw the cork into the yard. My little silo in a cornfield carved into squares. The air conditioning unit clicks on and hums like the state capitol down the road. In that room, an energy lobbyist hikes my rates. The bill will be mailed this month. Here, I am the Blackbird on the wire, and the plane that dropped me in Birmingham, Alabama when I was a child, where the landscape looked the same from any height, pine or sycamore. The roof of the house I helped my father build after the fall. Politics and farmland as small now as they were when I wore sweatpants to school, and the yard will grow smaller as I age. The plane crash lands in Black Warrior, my baptism, where the catfish grab my back fat, where they grab the bones in my ankles, and this concrete slab, my tombstone sinking into a riverbed of gravel, the iron gate leaning over this roaring grave. It looks so serious. This next poem has floppy tits in it, so I'm very excited to read it. I've been a part of one threesome that didn't work, but it got close to working. You all look like you wanted to know that. So this poem is called Bacchanalia. Who could excuse the banner streaming behind a yellow biplane displaying two bloody, chopped-off hands grasping a quarter? Or the chicken Caesar wraps warm for hours beneath a heat lamp, the cook working through probation? Scrub rust from the butter knife. Notice the trucker drop a handful of chips at the casino. Allow the senator to paperclip his secretary to a desk and praise the flag pinned to her chest, but do not pinch the preacher reaching for more bread. Even the blue hair steals a card at the Bingo Hall on Mother's Day. Call her the Queen of Tallahassee. Call her my mother in 30 years. Call her yours. But don't call her the mother of the Confederacy. Any tobacco-spitting grandmother cleans out her spittoon before meandering to bed, where a dream is a nicotine hangover masked by a glass of wine, a bit of cornbread, and 3 verses of the New Testament. Let's drink ourselves shitty, pray for the misguided, then wander on to the red light district at dusk, where floppy tits hang over banisters and ladies behave as they wish. Praise the soldier whose paycheck deposited into his account. Apollo, rain down your arrows of disease for the ill-trained, sloppy blowjob. Give me your good graces. Show me the state representative of Leon County walking her dog through the park. Then tell me why I should care. America's lungs are coal cars in winter, and I might be the last man of my century who still believes in the sanctity of a good fuck, which is hard for me to say even here in this dimly lit bar. Listen. An eagle showed her wings at the beach earlier. My wife looked on. It was an average scene for an average couple. We are not so interesting. We wait to church bells. Sharp-clothed people stumble to their cars. I look at a clock and see God. Heaven knows that God is you. This is my last poem. Oh, it's long. Conversely, with regard to blackbirds, there aren't many poems written about flamingos. It's true. So I decided to write a poem called Flamingo Cafe. It's got an epigraph, but I won't read it. I'm just going to go into the point. It's really for show anyway. Oh, this sounds smart. Formally, I must apologize for the daintiness of this cafe. In the corner, a plastic flamingo stands on one leg, while our server slides past with plates, napkins crumpled in our laps. Outside, two lovers step out of an El Camino with a rusted-out bed, while Adam, who's sitting across from me, talks about a Bingil he'd like to raise into adulthood after he moves to Orlando. And I give up on life. And somewhere inside Spencer's brain, he's dancing naked with Pancho Villa on the Lusitania while it sings. And Chris M. doesn't answer. He's reading a book about 18th century manners. The flamingo doesn't say a word. You can't. It's plastic. Neither can I, grinding my teeth. My brain moving too fast for my mouth, and Lisa and Liv keep whispering about how they'd love to be pandas on a slip and slide. You are both perfect when you dance. But they would never order gravy and biscuits, which I have. The meal is delightfully mediocre. Mid-bite, Adam says, I want a surround sound Bose stereo system to go with my television. I want to fire an M16 again, to smell sulfur on the range and hear a drill sergeant cuss me. But Kent, who is working on the second novel, is trying not to burn down another house. Because in his first book, he burns down 5. And in the second, the fields are already burning, and there's cognac on his breath, and there's gravy on mine, and still, I'm wondering how we all fit in this tiny-ass booth, our barely touching legs drifting apart beneath the table, and I know the server's working a double, but I need a refill on this coffee, like the Lusitania needs a torpedo to sink, like Spencer needs a sombrero to dance, like Chris M. needs a book to understand how manners operate in the 21st century. How did we end up here? Why do sharks dominate conversation? Keith walks in late. I'll have a glass of orange juice and a slice of rhubarb. I'll pay for that. Later, he orders a bourbon with a splash of ginger. He's a good listener. But his hair hasn't been washed in days, but it looks good enough and no one is sober enough to care. It's 4 in the morning. It's 4 in the fucking morning, and I'm almost 30 years old, and my wife is at home about to wake up to work on a novel. I don't know if she'll ever finish. And all of this while the El Camino has vanished, and Lisa and Liv have paid and left, and now there is more room in the booth. The thunderstorm disappeared, and I'm pretty sure I can see the sun when Adam says, if given $1,000, I'd buy a small wardrobe of remaindered Versace dresses and be the hottest drag queen who got last. Freaking landed. Erin is accepting. She'd probably enjoy the spectacle, and she'd throw a party smoking a pig Cuban style in the backyard while Jimmy plays blues on his guitar and everyone at the party sings their own song in unison, stepping over each other with the absolution of something close to love which I will call communion, because I have always believed bread is the goat of East. Make bread pudding and call it love. Call it love, goddamn. It's as real as a drag queen dry humping the flamingo on the corner, or the toothpick under my tongue, or Chris H. dressed as Lady Gaga for Halloween, dancing his ass off while wearing 3-inch pumps. And what would Aaron, the moral compass for all of us, say about this? If I had 1 hour anywhere in the world, I'd look out from the tiger's nest in Bhutan. I'd look across the mountains high above the rest of the world. But Aaron and Jude are asleep. And she won't say this for another year when I'm about to leave, which is all I'm discussing. When Jake walks in with a girl, and now Spencer is deciding how he'd spend his last meal. A leper I met in China had been possessed by an evil dragon in the shape of a moss snake wrapped around an azalea bush, and was thusly cast out of his village forever. This guy can tell a story. We'd eat witchetty grubs cooked over hot ash in a hut on top of a terraced mountain. Chris M. interrupts. Everything sleeps. Even sharks sleep. Somewhere a dog isn't sleeping, has yet to eat, is pacing the dirt path of his own making around a doghouse he didn't build because he's a dog. And I still need a refill on this coffee, and it's getting earlier, and the stores keep collapsing. Kent starts going on about why he's a possum. It's so goddamn beautiful. According to the folks, the night I was born, the porch was crowded with possums. I've accepted the last descendants of saber-toothed cats as my spirit animal, made small by pitiless evolution. He improvises with anything so often squashed by the world's machinery. Also, he says, they are near resistant to rabies, unlike the overrated raccoon. I've seen the painting in his house. Lauren is the armadillo. Ken is the possum. You are the flamingo, I tell myself. Then Spencer finishes his story. His wife, as an act of retribution for killing the small snake with a berry hoe, was struck deaf and blind by the dragon spirit, and the man who wasn't a leper was held down while the villagers took his wife to the foot of the mountain, built a pyre, and burned her alive. Then the son was obligated to host a banquet for the people who had burned his wife, a way of thanking them for exorcising the evil. I imagine Aaron in Bhutan overlooking the story. I imagine my wife waking now, and then the country fried ham frying in skillets across the world, and then the flamingo in the corner blinks. Nick sees this. He speaks of it as an ornamental exotic, the marker of suburban economic stability once held by the upper class. And I walk out the door, knowing there is more to this server than her never-ending double, that a flamingo is necessary, that tomorrow I will pack a U-Haul with books I've never read and watches I won't wear, that I'll have a familiar hangover thinking of manners, of how I'm leaving all the people I could never love. Thank you.